Okay, welcome to part 3 of a fully reusable STS-style Launchpad. What's going on, everybody? How you doing? Let me fire up Kerbal and let's get going. If you're watching this VOD in the future, we're in the wake of NASA announcing Ignition, their change in space policy directive. So if you hear a lot of chatter about that during this VOD, yeah, it's because it happened yesterday at the time of this VOD. So, yeah. Starting soon is still up. So, wait, where is it still up? Future viewers, tell us if it was a good idea in the comment section. All right. So we're going to load up some KSP and go from there. All right. In the great words of the show Space Force, fricking Microsoft, fricking Windows 98. Get Bill Gates in here. You said Windows 98 would be faster with better connectivity and better access to the internet. It is faster, over 5 minutes. Still funny. Oh, he's here. So, yeah, guys, I stopped the stream early last night because I had to go look through the entire, It's a great day to have a great day. Yeah, yeah, it is. I had to go look through the entire. I watched the whole presentation again, including the press conference. Yeah, fellas, we will talk about it more during Space News, but I've noticed something that's kind of what are you doing? The gist of it is that NASA really wants to lean heavily into commercial endeavors in the future and leverage launch services options and leverage launch provider options kind of as a service, similar to what they want to do or what they've done with commercial orbital transport systems and commercial crew. And that's all fine and dandy. But once again, I will talk about it in more detail during Space News today, because yeah, I want to do kind of like a follow-up. But my main thing is you want to leverage the commercial market for a moon base, but in the same exact press conference, you admit that the ISS has not fostered the commercial market as previously thought. I'm not entirely 100% sure how you can leverage commercial. You're trying to leverage commercial to build a moon base, but in the same exact thing, admit that it failed in low Earth orbit. The moon is a much riskier endeavor for companies. It was the same thing I was talking about yesterday. Yeah, I'm not sure how you're going to do that. And if that's the case, if you're hedging our entire moon base on the bet that the industry is going to rise to the occasion and shoulder all the risk for a project like this, you are out of your mind. No one's going to do that. No one's going to do it. Yeah, I really don't think that that's a good idea. Especially when it very much seems like they're giving SLS an off-ramp after Artemis 5. Yeah, I don't like it. I don't think that's a good idea. I really don't. Because they want the commercial partners to build their moon base. The other plan was to get partners to build their own space stations. Yeah, I suppose, Hibbit. I suppose that might work, dude. Yeah, that might be the solution. But it still doesn't beat around the bush. If you're going to say it still doesn't, it's beating around the bush at that. No, that's not the right way to say that. Look, let me explain this way. If you admit that commercial low Earth orbit destinations on their own doesn't work, unless you have some type of NASA-owned core node, for your space stations to help foster that environment, What makes you think that that's going to work with the moon base where you just, everybody, there's all commercial, right? NASA needs, the point is that NASA needs an anchor point on the moon. And Gateway, as much as I don't like it, was that anchor point. So you need to replace that with a lunar base core node anchor point. And how are you going to get that there? Landers? Commercial landers? Who's going to shoulder that risk? That should be a NASA mission done in-house with Block 1B, if you really want my honest opinion. It should be. Then your partners can build to your moon base, right? Yeah. If you're hedging the entire moon base on expecting the commercial aerospace industry to rise to it, I don't think that's a good long-term strategy. I really don't. And I'm not trying to be critical of Rook. I really like that he's shaking things up. I have trepidations about this plan. I really do, guys. Like I love Rook. He's a good dude. I really like that he's shaking things up. I guess what I'm trying to say is he's not shaking things up in a way that I like.
This is space.
But I do like that we have an administrator that's willing to try something. She's trying to do something, you know? Aren't the HABs going to be designed by NASA? I'm going to have to probably go review that again, Josh, just to see. You think Jared walked into a landmine, an unwinnable situation, or just lots of confusion? I think he's trying to make do with what we have. The reality, and this is, guys, like, okay, I've been saying this for years, all right? And I hate to just be the one that's like, yeah, I told you so. I'm not trying to be that guy. Look, NASA beating that drum of commercialization. Oh, we'll commercialize the suits. We'll commercialize the lander. We'll commercialize this. We'll commercialize that. That is not a business strategy, okay? That is not an architectural strategy. That is there because we refuse to address the core problem that NASA really has no underlying, there's no underlying architecture that's built around the entire program. You're playing with table scraps of a lunar architecture, and you're trying to make it work. And that, you know, once again, Jared Isaacman is making do with what he has. And I can't say that, like, I would do much different than what he would be doing if I was there. Not that I'm qualified to do that. I play KSP. I get it. All right? Like, without an underlying architecture, right? Something like the Saturn V, right? You need something like the Saturn V. You need a big flagship mission. The Saturn V, the LEM, CSM. Without building around something like that, you're destined to not do well. That's the real truth here. The real truth is that, and this is where I agree with Jared Isaacman, the truth is that NASA is caca at capital allocation. We have all these fragmented projects all over the place. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. You can, you know, certainly when it comes to like science, diversifying your scientific understanding all over the solar system is probably a better idea, right? But when it comes to an integrated mission architecture, so like something that you would need to go to the moon, relying potentially on this commercial thing or doing a standardized version of that, or, you know, not really having a long-term goal past Artemis 5 could be very detrimental. You need, okay, once again, I will point to historical precedent here as best as I can. Commercial Crew, the short story of this, and once again, space news, dudes. We'll talk about it in 3 hours, or well, 3.5, let's say. The ISS, the Commercial Crew and Commercial Orbital Transport Services do not work if the ISS doesn't exist. And how does the ISS exist? Well, it exists because of the space shuttle. There's no getting around that, guys. I'm sorry. Like, the only way that this commercial public-private partnership works is if NASA shoulders the risk on a gigantic lunar base, and the commercial partners handle the logistical sides of things. That's really the only way that has historically worked in the past. And I would even argue that has not worked the best. Starliner, Dream Chaser, Cygnus. Now, Cygnus is a great spacecraft. What about its launch vehicle? It's launched on 3 different launch vehicles over the past 5 years because of supply chain issues. So Cygnus launches on Falcon right now. Cygnus before launched on Atlas. And it might launch on Eclipse sometime in the future, the Antares 330, right? Which is Firefly builds the first stage, which is fine. That's cool. But for right now, you know, this diversified commercial crew logistics, or commercial crew and transport services logistics thing is entirely reliant on one contractor. Without SpaceX, the ISS is screwed. So I would argue that even commercial orbital transport services to an extent did not really achieve the goals that it was supposed to do. NASA even talked about that yesterday. A commercial market has failed to materialize in low Earth orbit. So what makes us think that it will happen on the moon? I'm really kind of confused by that logic there. You working for NSF today or covering ISAR? I'm going to cover it here, dude. Yeah, we'll cover it here. So yeah, we're going to start Space News with the Spectrum launch. Are you playing sandbox mode in this build? Matt, yes and no. I do have money in this save. I edited a bunch of money into this save. This save is a career mode save with no reverts. So do it right, do it the first time, but you do have an unlimited, more or less unlimited budget. This is a career mode save by default, though. This original save was a save that I built around my shuttle program. It's called Mission Mode 3. Mission Mode 3 is not my third mission mode playthrough. It's a rule set. The rule set focuses more on launching and putting payloads up into space than it does Mission Mode 2 rules back in the day, which is where you got to build out a pad and everything. But since I'm trying to build a shuttle launch pad, I figured my mission mode save that's centered around shuttles, it would probably be a good place to build it. That and it keeps the saves cleared. Like, there's only shuttle stuff inside of this save. As opposed to the 618 craft files I have in my engineering mode total sandbox save. The PPE was originally to be used for asteroid redirect. Then it was repurposed for gateway. Now it's supposedly going to have a reactor bolted to it. That thing's going to end up in the corner of a random museum. Yeah, Hellfish, that is what I'm talking about. It refuses to address the overarching problem. The overarching problem is that we don't have something like the Apollo program. Even the Artemis program, which goal is to build a moon base. All right, NASA needs to do that. They need to build the moon base, and then the commercial needs to pick up the slack. And that is more sustainably done in-house. And, you know, is that more expensive? Yes, but you're paying for the market stability there, just like we did with the ISS. The ISS was extremely expensive, but it has fostered the commercial orbital transport services and commercial crew programs. It's an investment into an economic driver, right? And that's important to understand.
Discovery, go at throttle up.
The reality of the situation, guys, is that NASA doesn't have the budget to get done what they want to get done. And they're trying, we've been forced to make lemons with not even lemons. Lemons, like, we're trying to squeeze more out of a lemon that already has a lot squeezed out of it. Now, if Jared Isaacman wants to make the point that it is, that we suck at capital allocation, yeah, I would kind of go with that. Yeah, sure. But if you're going to allocate capital to all these commercial programs, all that's going to do is have NASA piss away money on a gigantic risk. I would honestly rather have NASA piss away money on something like SLS, because at least you know that SLS is going to fly. Like, yeah, there it is. Yeah, there, I said it. Yeah. That's why SLS carries a heavy cost, because no business is going to be like, no, this isn't profitable. Bye-bye. You know what I mean? We always, like, but without giving it a goal, without giving it a standard, solidified goal and getting the proper funding and backing for it, you're way too reliant on commercial here. That could backfire tremendously. All these RFIs that they put out yesterday. What happens when no one responds to them? What do? You admitted that you just admitted that all the RFIs you've put out over the last 20 years for the ISS has been failures. So if I was a company, why would I take that financial risk? Yeah, Geeson, exactly. I don't think I really honestly and truly don't think we're at the point for commercial market maturation in low Earth orbit. And that's by NASA's own admission. So if we're not ready in low Earth orbit, why would we be ready in lunar orbit? That doesn't make sense. I understand that the contexts are slightly different, and you could make the argument that a space station like the ISS is not a good commercial model because the ISS is so hard to maintain because it's such a complicated space station. That's fair. Okay, if that's the case, launch something like Skylab. Pivot back to doing stuff like Skylab then. Skylab was low cost. It was made out of an upper stage. But we can't do that. We just scrapped the upper stages. We just scrapped the bigger upper stages for SLS. See what I mean? I'm not trying to say that some of this sounds like you're shooting from the hip, but some of it sounds like you're shooting from the hip. Like, the tourism bit honestly surprised you. Like, when did we think that would become a thing, save for the very tiny sliver of the 1% that has that sort of disposable income? I don't know. How much Norman Augustine influence did you see in this? Honestly, not much. He's been arguing the opposite of that, Hellfish. I think the guy realized how much he screwed up. But I don't know. Hard to say. Skylab was awesome. They had so much space inside. I mean, Mats, I'm not saying do that with an EUS or an SLS core stage, but do that with an EUS or an SLS core stage, dude. But yeah, anyway. We can talk more about that during Space News. And yeah, we'll watch the ESAR launch, and then we'll get into kind of a summary recap of what's going on. Hey, Cheech, 8-month resub. Thanks, man. Just scrolling up chat, make sure I didn't miss anything. Josh, do I think Halo could be a core module? It's possible,
Discovery,
yeah.
go at throttle up.
You'd have to retool a bunch of it. You got to give it landing legs, and how's it getting down there, you know? Easy coat. You missed me. What's up, Binary? What did you say, buddy? Are you working on NSF? No, I'm not doing ESAR stuff. I'm not doing stuff today. I'm just covering it here. Could turn the Starship upper stage into a wet workshop. Yeah. Tyler, that would work. I was just kidding. Oh, okay.
Discovery,
hey, likes.
go at throttle up.
90-month resub. Thanks, man. Fluffy, what do you say? What were you saying about Pete? Is Pete here? I'm confused. Hey, Chief, how you doing? Just saw the 100 sub was all. Yeah, Pete went off yesterday. I really appreciate it. Pete's a good buddy of mine, dude. I've known him for a long time. Do you think Omega could come back and exist in this day and age, or has Blue ULA eaten that launch already? I don't think Omega could exist. They scrapped the launcher for it. The mobile launcher platform that Omega was supposed to launch from, NASA scrapped it. Oh, good. How are you? I'm okay. All right. So this is where we left off. So I had a little bit of a problem here. Let me show you. Let me find last week's VOD regarding this. All right, here, check it out. Get rid of the chat replay. It was at the very end. So you're going to see double EJ here for a second. Now, what I was doing with this prototype new pad, this is a prototype shuttle pad. What I was doing with it is testing it to make sure that what we tested in part 1 would work with this revised version. Now, everything seemed to be working okay, except when I went to go and launch this thing. Here. Watch. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. It was at this moment that he knew he screwed up. So, honestly, it's probably a good idea to make sure that your Launchpad doesn't launch. Yeah, that you know, that is what I want, but that's also not what I want either. Yep. I mean, it was flying. I did past EJ is right. I did in fact get that to fly, but you know, I'm not gonna lie to you. In spaceflight, when you do a test like this, it's about making sure the thing does what you want. That is not that. That's not what we wanted. Yeah, it wasn't the Chinese booster. It wasn't like the Chinese booster. The Chinese booster broke off of the test stand. My boosters took the test stand with it. So what happened here, as far as I can tell, is if you look, these pins, see the pins right there? Those are the guide pins for making sure that the SRB gets aligned correctly so we could hang the external tank on it. We tested that all worked, and it worked just fine on my other pad. We're able to sequence 2 or 3 separations on the kind of pad that's just made that I made out of leftover launch pads from other rockets. Now with this, it didn't work. It's stuck. It is stuck underneath it, and it yeah, if you look, both of the docking ports right there are uncoupled. So this thing is not connected to the pad. The other reason why I know it's not connected to the pad is because the SRBs have become a separate vehicle from the launch pad. I'm in control of the launch pad right now. The Kerbal defaulted control during separation to the launch pad. How do I know that for sure? If we had control of the SRBs, we would see the SRBs right here in the staging groups. They're not there. So one, big problem. We defaulted control to the pad. I don't need to control the pad after liftoff. We should be controlling the rocket that we need to fly, especially something as temperamental as a shuttle stack. That thing is very tough to get it to fly correctly when you're manually controlling it. 2, we stuck to the pad. The whole system got jammed together. Now, what can we do about it? I don't know. I got to sit there and I got to think. What I really don't need happening is the launch pad getting launched off the ground. That is not ideal. That is not what we want. So reroute it then. Tyler, you can reroute if you set if I set the shuttle as a certain type of vessel and I set the pad to a certain type of vessel, it will reroute correctly. When GSE becomes flight hardware, I forgot to remove before flight tag. So as far as I went back scrubbing in this VOD over the weekend because I wanted to work on this on Monday. We ended up not doing that because your boy crashed out because Mondays. I went back and scrubbed through the VOD. I enabled the stability assist controller on this, and it caused the SRB nozzles to move around. And when they moved around, it unaligned everything. So yeah, that's not something you want. Because when you enable the SAS, the stability assist, the nozzles, the SAS starts to try to make corrections to hold things in place, right? The problem is that the bottom of my nozzles here, the bottom of the nozzles are holding the SRB up, which is not how it works in real life. In real life, the SRB aft skirt is what holds the SRB up. But here's the problem. I tested this way, and I know that this way works. Okay? I know that this way works correctly. As far as I can tell, we got the SRBs to join together correctly because the SRBs are hanging on this, because they're hanging on a plate. They're hanging on a launch segment, and it has worked correctly in the past. So we got to start thinking about this. Did this happen because I enabled the SAS and it started moving the nozzle around on here? Because if it starts moving the nozzle around on this, the nozzle's going to do this, and it's going to be like if you had like a cooking pan and you dropped it, and dropped it on the floor, and it goes ding, 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 ding. That's basically what was going on here. Is that the cause of this problem? Or is it something else with this pad design? It's something we're going to have to do a little bit of a fault tree analysis here to figure it out. Could get the CAL to enable gimbal after liftoff. That's a really good idea, Tyler. Yeah, sure. Yeah, that is. Yeah, that sounds right to me. So, yeah, that's a good idea. I've always had trouble putting things inside those circular structural parts, but that's just you. Yeah, Gator Guy, for sure, for sure. Hey, thanks for those kind words on Monday, dude. I saw what you said. I appreciate it, dude. I was having a real bad day. Even Mr. Streamer Man over here has bad days, you know what I mean? Sorry. I apologize for not streaming on Monday much. But 'tis a new day. Which also means you have to disable it at some point for reuse. Let me think. So, Wartoz, you're saying you wrote an essay about the space race for history class today. It's extremely funny to be able to say, and no one has gone back since 1972. That is until a week from now. Nice, baby. Nice. Boy. Flying pads are generally suboptimal. How's it going? Yeah, we've discerned that. That's not ideal. that's not what we want to see. That's not what we want to see. No. Oh my God. Or disable it when the chute's open. So Mutter, what I'm thinking, dude, is add, if we take the gimbal, right? If we took the gimbal, right, and we added the gimbal controller to these, right? And so do like this, ready? Go in here. This is the right booster. Hear me out. If you take the pad with you, you can launch from anywhere. Ah, yes, the LEM solution. Nice. Launchpad? Launched pad? We got an anomaly? We got to clear the area? We only have locked gimbal here. But free on launch and lock on tail off. We would just, yeah, Mutter. That's probably what I'm going to do. I'm just thinking whether I want to manually enable or disable it. Because, dude, sometimes when you plop it in on a Cal controller, like if you put the toggle on, it doesn't work. And honestly, if one of these doesn't work on the way up, after ignition, we got a problem. That's not going to end well, right? Like, I'm honestly thinking, like, from a straight UX standpoint, gimbal could be locked out on the boosters, right? And now I do have these boosters hacked a little bit, guys. They have 8 degrees of thrust vector actuation, like the real SRBs. So that's not entirely vanilla, or like totally stock KSP. I did hack them to 8 degrees of thrust vector control because that's what the real ones have. You can do that by editing the craft file. Hey, Chris, what's going on, man? So I might set it. If we set free gimbal to the action group separator, so if we hit at AG0, right, it'll launch. That's always been my sequence because that plays the Cal controllers for the thrust curves. If we add a free gimbal controller in there to the AG, that will set it correctly. Now, that means we're gonna if we do ever get these boosters back, if we ever get them back. That does mean that we need to, I'll need to manually lock out the booster. But yeah, if I ever get to recovery procedures, I think that's something I'd probably end up doing anyway, so. You're good, Chris. You just finished work for the day. How are you? I'm all right, man. Everything's good. Rob, you're playing Kerbal. Knows you can change the color of the tanks. Yeah, some tanks you can change. Yeah. Would I say I still need to be off until it clears the mounts? Mutter, my solution to this problem is this. Weigh the pad down. So now the pad's double the mass because I filled up 4 fuel tanks for ballast. And try it. Worst case scenario, it gets jammed until SRB tail off, and then we can just recover it. Right? Am I thinking about that correctly? if both of them jam. That's a good point. Let me think. So, a stagger sequence, if we take free gimbal out of there, and we go to SRB curve R, right? And we go in here, right? This is 137 seconds on the sequence. We can go in here like this, go here like that, put a free gimbal actuator in there, and then plus in a point at what, 5 seconds? Free gimbal actuator after 5 seconds. But see, that's weird for me. That's weird because that means we have no control over this thing. We are dead sticked for the first 5 seconds. Do we really want to do that with a shuttle booster? Maybe set it to 2 seconds? Just point the flamey end up. Well, no, we don't want the flamey end up. What are you, nuts? And this, if you want to understand ignition sequencers and how they work, this is how they work. It's this type of stuff, right? Do you let the thing go and then turn on the TVC? Do you activate TVC before you launch? That's usually what stuff does, right? This is the kind of stuff that when they say, oh, we are a go for ignition sequencer start, this is that it's a sequence of events. Everything doesn't happen at once. Right? This is what an ignition sequencer does in real life, guys. If you really want to know, this is how it works. Usually they have a written checklist, Kappa. Yeah, and usually I don't time out stupid comments, but here we are. Sorry. sorry. Savage EJ came out for a second there. My bad. Sorry. Oh, even YouTube chat was like, God dang. So, he chose violence. You got jammed. Maybe 1 second, dudes. You know what? I'm gonna set it at 2, not 52. That would end very poorly. I'm gonna set it at 2. So we have to remember that if we do ever get to the point of building out the shuttle stack, that we have to change on the master craft file. We have to change the sequencer on the SRBs to have this on them, because if we don't, we got a big problem. Free gimbal. Plus in a point, set value to 2. Hey, it's not Friday. No spicy EJ. Yeah, right. Maybe you need to hack the pad for that 8-degree TVC. Yeah. See, the thing here is so, okay, real talk here for a second. The other thing here is that these place anywhere RCS ports and my hybrid tech hinge that I made, hinge piece that I'm using as a holder, that actually doesn't hold anything. That is just there to guide the booster in to make sure that the booster locks into the right position. That's all. That's all it's there for. It's not there for anything else. It's there just to align this thing when we go to fit it in. So another thing that we could do is in action group 0, right? We have action group 1 to enable same vessel collision. In AG0, we could disable same vehicle interaction on this stuff. And we could run the disable part. If we set that into the launch sequencer, that plus the staggered thrust vector control actuation should give us a clean separation every time. I think between that And everything else, I think we should be good. Now, what's this set to? Configure vessel. Ship. Okay. Now, if we go down to the probe core down here, configure vessel naming, I believe we set it as a lander for our docking vessel hierarchy. This should make it, fellas, this should make it so this thing doesn't, so we default control to the SRBs on the way up. That's what it should be doing. I've always had trouble with consistency trying things like this. In real life, just like in KSP, you just got to make sure, Terminator, that you do the same thing every time. You have to do the same exact thing every time. That is key to building like launch pads or any type of ground infrastructure. You have to be very slow, very deliberate, and do the same exact thing every time. That's the only way to get it to work reliably. And there's a really valuable lesson there. It's the same case in real life. That's something that mission mode actually taught me. Hang on, it's getting hot here. I gotta open the door. That's the same exact thing. That's something that mission mode 2 rules taught me. If you're putting together a stack, you do it the exact same way every time. No exceptions. Any deviation from your checklist, shut up, Hellfish, from your checklist, any deviations in what you're doing, something that's not exactly lined up, stop, start over. If you deviate from what worked the last time, guess what? It's going to do something different, most likely. Weird how that works. Are you going to add a gimbal lock to the end of the SRB burn? Or is it better to do it manually? So Tyler, my question there at that point is why? What's the point? Do I need the thrust vector controls to be locked on the SRBs during separation? No, they're not making any thrust anyway. Who cares? From a straight logic standpoint, if I'm going to fish the SRBs out and bring them back, just what's to it during reintegration, just to click that button manually. It's not that big of a deal. Now, here's the other thing. If we do go to do this, right? If we go to do this, and I say I fish out an SRB in the future, right? We fish out an SRB in the future, and I forget to do it. Well, then yeah, maybe we should make the case for that. But I don't know. Am I going to forget to do it? How hard is it to do it? I mean, I really can't see the harm in locking out the gimbal post-separation on the boosters. Like, do you? Do you see any harm in doing that? I don't. Yeah, the flip side is that's what it's one more thing for EJ's core memory to remember it, right? Like, but now, because we did this, what we have to do is remember to modify the master shuttle craft file, my booster master craft file. We have to make sure that we add this stuff to it, or else, yeah, we got a problem, right? Like, you paid $8 a gallon in Australia. Ooh. Hey, Grizz, what's going on? Okay, guys, so here's my next question. Let's think about this. Is there logically, straight logic, any downside to setting a lock on my SRB thrust vector control? Like right before separation. Is there any downside to it? I separate these things at 1 minute 50. So we separate 110 seconds into flight. The boosters separate. Now, I would say we would want to lock out your thrust vector control post-separation, but that's something that we would need to test. It's something you'd have to test because I don't know if the CAL controllers are going to lock out something on a vehicle that's separated from my main craft file, from the shuttle and the external tank. Will the CAL controllers run separately? Maybe. I mean, technically with turning off same vessel on the balls, unlocking lock and gimbal isn't really needed now. I mean, technically with turning off same vessel on the balls, the locking, unlocking gimbal isn't really needed. That's another good point. Do we need, like, this is what I mean. I'm sure if you're watching the stream, you've heard Elon say, delete the part, simplify it, delete stuff you don't need. Do we need this at all if I do same vessel collision disable down there on separation? Hey, Flagon. I've had Cal controllers run on non-crafts before, but I'm not sure about multiple. Yeah, exactly. So do we just delete this? As long as this, as we set same vessel interaction here, as long as we disable SVI during ignition, guys, I honestly don't think we need to do any of this. I'm serious. I don't think so. I really don't think that needs to happen. I'm gonna try it this way, guys. Let's do this way. Deleting the gimbal is probably easier. And that right there, that's the kind of logic loop that SpaceX means when they say delete the part. Delete stuff you don't need. There's no use in adding excess complication here if we just disable this in the first place during ignition. That way, we know for a fact that that's never going to get stuck because we just told the game that it's not a collidable part, right? However, pause. If it becomes a separate vehicle, we don't have a choice. It's collidable. If it becomes a separate vehicle, we did separate it and then it got stuck. I think it'd need to move a lot before it would be an issue now. See, we can disable same vehicle interaction. That's all fine and dandy, but when we go to separate this thing, they're going to collide because they're a separate vehicle. Every vehicle collides with every other vehicle in this game. It's only when it's all one vehicle, so when we're connected to the pad that we can toggle same vessel interaction. How do we know if that's going to work during ignition? It's gonna blow up because you're scared. What? No, not at all. No, not at all. That's not at all what's going on. I'm trying to make sure that this doesn't happen. It can sense your fear. You know what? I'm not gonna contest that. The vehicle's telling you something, and you got to understand what it's saying. And it will prey on your fear if you're not 100% sure. That's, you know, BP, you ain't wrong. All right? But that's not what's going on here, dude. I'm trying to make sure that this works. Like, that's all. Like, you have to be 100% sure, as close to 100% sure as you're going to be. Like, if you're not, it's not, yeah, something will fail. Because if you're not sure, that means you haven't taken everything into account. But the flip side of that is that you always have to take a risk. Well, Gene Kranz talks about this in Failure is Not an Option. He talks about known unknowns versus unknown unknowns. Do I know what this thing is going to do when the SRB's light? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, we know it's going to do something. Now the real question is it going to do what we want? That's the unknown unknown, and that's what I'm trying to... Now, in spaceflight, you can take unknown unknowns and make them known unknowns, all right? I know that if I figure out a way, I know for a fact that if I figure out a way to get these things to jive correctly, that it will separate. It'll separate just fine. I've demonstrated it 2 times already with my other pad design, right? We've demonstrated that we know that that's going to work. We've done it, right? How do we make a previous known unknown with my other pad design that's frankly just a bunch of cobbled together parts? How do we make that a known unknown with this pad? What if you lower the sockets so the balls can't fall through them completely and get stuck under them? Now, so what happens, Mutter? Okay, just a quick side note here. What happens is when the SRB, when we fill up the SRBs, when we tank the SRBs, right? These pins slip out of socket. So are we looking at a mechanical problem here? Is it something that we can fix with a CAL controller? If it's a mechanical problem, I don't think trying to fix it with a CAL controller as a band-aid is a good idea. Maybe we should address the actual issue. But the real question here is that this didn't happen with my other pad design, but it's happening with this one. Why? Why is it happening with this one? This is an exact copy of the other. Yeah, this is an exact copy of the other ones as far as I can tell. Yay, today is the anniversary of the first orbital launch from Europe after 69 years. Yay, nice. Can we not just explosively shear them like the real ones? Yeah. See, we got a logic puzzle to solve here. Now, another question to ask is this the exact same design? What I can do is I can grab the original pad that we know works, this one, and we can compare and contrast. So, did I at some point maybe pull the wrong craft file? I just want to get the launcher out of this thing. Now, because I pulled in a second set of SRBs, sometimes that does unbind CAL controllers if you have reread. Today is the first orbital launch. Oh, you're talking about ESAR. Oh, I thought you were talking about like the Ariane 4 launch. Like, did they launch? All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring these up into position. Did I accidentally modify this? Are these in the right spots? Let's check. Nope, everything seems to be in the right position. I noticed yesterday you said a topic might not get covered on Flame Trench, and then you said This Week in Space. Not wanting to cause drama, just curious. Do some topics get held for This Week in Spaceflight? No, John. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the context of that conversation is. We do not hold specific topics for This Week in Spaceflight. Flame Trench is what me, Sawyer, and Max want to discuss, dude. Yeah, and that's it. Nobody else. It can be redundant to Twist. It could be completely different as Twist. Me, Sawyer, and Max have complete creative control over the topics of discussion in Flame Trench. Nah, nothing like that is going on, dude. I have that. That's right for me. I'm kind of at this point the de facto creative director of Flame Trench. Actually, me and Sawyer and Max kind of are. It's just, yeah, that's our baby, you know. Spat is looking very amaze. Dirty. Why so many crap files? Question. Man, I'm so excited for ESAR. Currently hiking out to an island to hopefully get a sick evening launch from 5 kilometers away. Try and get some pictures. Yeah, man. ESAR is going to be good, man. I really hope they do well, Jock. I really do. If we're going to... Dude, let me put it this way. Judging what I saw from NASA's plans yesterday, we're going to need all the launch vehicles we can get if we're going to do this moon base. Like, please, we need more. It doesn't matter if it's a small sat launcher, medium duty, heavy duty, whatever. Anything from like Spectrum all the way to Starship. We're gonna need a lot of launch vehicles to do this. You know? Would this pad float? Yeah. Yeah, it would. There you go, Dan. Right on. This is where EJ stores trash? Question? No, this is where EJ stores his hopes and dreams. Question. So, as far as I can tell, there's no difference, no discernible difference between this pad design and the previous one that worked. The only real difference is that I enabled SAS and the boosters skitched around a lot. The only other thing to check would be our Autostrut hierarchy on the other pad. Now, let me look right here. Let's go into physics, and there's going to be a lot of orange. What is the Autostrut hierarchy here? So the boosters are set to grandparent part. Okay. And these docking ports right here are set to heaviest. That one is set to grandparent part over there. Okay. I'm not enjoying shooting this Chromax XP metallic base coat. It's very thin, super tweaky on the paint gun. Article, up the pressure. Do you have a pressure regulator on your paint gun? Up the pressure a little bit. And more importantly, you have a water filter on your paint gun too, right? Please say yes. Three filters. Good man. All right, cool. So I saw the Autostrut hierarchy there. Now let's go back to the main craft file. And now let's look at the Autostrut hierarchy here. It's the same. Try enable the SAS and wiggle to try and recreate the issue. Well, Tyler, I'm 100% sure. Can I ask you a dumb question? What's on your mind, BP? I just want to know what's out in space besides darkness. Need a bigger spaceship to do that. But yeah, we all do, dude. That's why we do this. Yeah, I'm not sure you need 3 water filters, but yeah. SVO, you need an AA meeting, but for car buying. I've bought 6 Fiesta STs in the last month and 2 in the last week. I also really want to spend entirely too much money and buy a 2020 to 2022 GT500. Sorry for off topic. No, you have a Carcane addiction. There's nothing wrong with that. Bro, where are you getting all the cash to buy all this stuff? Your job must pay really well. Can you, like, tell me how to do that? Like, so I can buy more cars? Like, what are you doing? Like, can I, like, do that as a side hustle or something? Selling parts. Yeah, I got you. Oh my God. Is that Max? Max is over in YouTube chat. That's funny. What's up, man? I guess my best bet here is to just do this test again. See what happens. I also have to sneeze. Yeah. So 12K worth of product, just one car. Plus there's about another 2 to 3K on eBay. No idea on the cash side in the last month. So you're parting out cars, SVO. I mean, that's not anything I didn't know. Should probably do that. So Max said the thing. Oh my God. Yes, he did. Turbo diesel today. Yeah, you got it, man. I think a few things EJ says here wouldn't fly on NSF. That's why it's my stream, baby. Oh, that would have ended well. The logic on the cows weren't set correctly. Good thing I caught that one. How much does the Saturn V Interstage in your backyard go for on the market? That's you that has that S1C Interstage? I've seen pictures of that before. I'll give you $350 for it. Wasn't this build supposed to be in one stream? No, it wasn't supposed to be in one stream. I said I don't have any expectations on actually finishing this project because it's an insanely difficult one, but we have made good progress. Yeah, I said that was the first thing that I said in the part 1 video. I wish no lowballers. I know what I have. I'm gonna put this sucker here as a quick and easy way for Kerbals to have access to the pad. And then let me put a ladder right there so they can get up. All right, cool. So put Tumless in there. All right, so I'm gonna have the gimbals locked out on this thing. And what I'll try to do this time around when we go to do it is manually enable. I'll just try this first. Manually enable the gimbals, the thrust vector control actuators right before ignition. Or we could just... Yeah, no, that's what you're going to have to do because SAS. Yeah, the stability assist. Another thing we could look into doing as a feasible pathway here is figure out a way to get the thing to stand up on these. I'm not sure how we're going to do that, but we could. Oh, there you go, Grizz. Right on. Speaking of progress. Yeah, Progress did dock to the ISS. The Kurs, their auto docking system didn't work, so Sergei Kudskverchov actually docked it manually. Yep. Yeah, it made it up there. It's fine. Hey, Mafuber, what's up, dude? Hope you're doing fine. Excited for April 1st. Yeah, me too, man. Yeah, I am. Absolutely. All right, I'm good to try this test again. Let's do it. This time the gimbals are locked out, though. That's what I'll do, guys. So to this sequence here, sequence separation, free gimbal. That's what we'll try this time. Free gimbal on ignition. Which isn't that far off from how the real SRB works, but yeah. What's April 1st? Really? Artemis 2, dude. You know the whole lunar mission thing? No big deal. I've been on a business trip and I'm out of the loop. All good, man. Artemis 2. Yeah, moon mission. Kind of a big deal. All right, let's do this test again. So, what did I change? I set it to have the gimbals locked until ignition. Right? So they don't sketch around on the pad because I'm pretty sure that was my root cause of problem here. And I changed the vessel hierarchy to make it so we should default to the SRB stack during ignition and liftoff. Those are the two events that I'm looking for. That's what I want to see. We're declaring our expectations for this test. I need them to separate clean. And I need, when I hit ignition, I need control to default to the launch vehicle and not the launch pad. In order to do that, I'm going to need to make sure there's no Kerbals on the launch pad. So I have a decoupler here to separate the crew capsule from the pad just in case. Well, not just in case. I'm going to have to do it. This normally would not be there. I would just have a truck drive up and... because we need a Kerbal to run the struts. Okay. Let's roll. You guys ready? First test of the day. Are we sure NASA isn't just pranking us with an April Fool's launch date? I don't know. Depends on how much the Big Orange wants to cooperate. Good. Our first catch of the day. All right. So, we have same vehicle interaction enabled. The first thing that we need to do to replicate the tests that we did the other day is to separate the left-hand SRB. We always separate the left-hand one. We need Kerbal to understand that this is one vehicle, because right now it doesn't think it's one vehicle. It thinks it's one SRB by itself and another SRB with this thing attached to the side. If we went to launch this right now, the SRBs would go off in their own directions, because it's not reading that as a primary docking port. So, If we hit undock, it should re-snap to that port and change the hierarchy. Now, I'm going to go into Autostrut visualizations, and we see an Autostrut is going through that docking port right there. That's a good indicator that the hierarchy is correct. Now, something I did notice. Doing this changes how these things are strutted to the pad. All right. Interesting. The auto struts are slightly different. Note that this one is running a grandparent strut down to that docking port because that docking port is in symmetry. This one is not. Okay, so this is where Thomas Kerman and the struts, the strutorama, this is where this comes into play. Let's go into inventory. Or don't. He needs to go up here. Passing, what's going on, man? How are you? And now this would be normally part of operations and checkout. I'm simplifying it so we can do it. Okay, these are the aft SRB struts that I would be attaching to the external tank. Note that the pad did move. The whole stack kind of moved around a little bit. Just something to take into account. It did move a little bit. He's a pad ninja. Yeah, we should probably change his uniform off the orange suit. But now these that imitates the external tank aft SRB struts. Now the next thing to do would be to have him board that vessel and separate it from there. Now we turn control back to the pad. Now in map view, the pad should be showing up as a lander. CTS-5 prototype landed at runway. Good. All right, cool. Okay, now what we need to do is fuel the SRBs. I have no way of stacking segmented SRBs in KSP, but I do have a way of hacking a cal controller to fuel them. So we can reuse them. We proved that it could be done. So what we got to do is we got to select our cal controller, take each SRB. We need to take the thrust limiter on both of them, right? And then we need to invert our thrust controller. So the curve, you need to adjust the curve so it goes down so it generates negative thrust. If it generates negative thrust, it's it'll make fuel. No, I don't know why that works, but it works. So the next thing that we're gonna have to do to make sure that this doesn't screw up is disable our SRB firing chain controller. Those ones need to be shut off, just to make sure that this is doing exactly what we want. Now, the next thing that we need to do is hit the manual activation on the SRBs. This would already be done. If they were in a reuse state, they would already be activated, but there would be no thrust limiter and no fuel, right? So we have them activate. Make sure the gimbal is locked out on both of them. It is. We've verified the gimbal is locked out. Now we take the CAL controller and we invert it. Setting it to an inverted value will fuel our SRBs. Now, what we really need to do here is watch to see how these things sink into position when we fill them up. We need to watch those pins. Note that the camera is moving because the center of mass of our vehicle is changing because I'm filling them up with fuel. What I really need to do is watch how much these pins sag. Fun fact, when vehicles are getting tanked in real life, when you're filling up like an SLS core, Falcon 9, Starship, they do stuff like this. They wiggle around. Stuff like that, right there, that happens. When you fill them up with fuel. That doesn't happen with solid rocket boosters because they're solid rocket boosters. They're fueled before it even gets to the pad, right? But if you're filling up the SLS core stage, vehicle does move. It creaks around. It moves into position. Did I close the road? I closed the runway. Does that help? Okay, when you hear that noise, they're starting to burn off the excess fuel, set their limiters back to 0. Okay, now we take our refueling controller and disable it. But yeah, guys, stuff like that. Did you see when I was filling it up, the SRBs were moving around? That happens. Real rocket stacks do that. They do move. They kind of creak and move around because you're filling them up with fuel. So that extra weight really kind of, tenses them up a little bit. In many ways, guys, so fun fact, SLS can't launch. It cannot launch without the core stage being tanked. It will not move. That thing structurally is designed to be full of cold fuel. It only gets strong enough to hold itself up when it's fully tanked, or launch when it's fully tanked. It's only strong enough to handle the SRBs on the sides of it when the core stage or the external tank in the case of the shuttle is fully fueled. The reason why is that when you tank the core stage and when you tank the external tank from the shuttle, the whole thing, the entire stack contracted by probably about a foot. Yeah, the stack actually gets shorter. The whole thing gets a little bit shorter when you put fuel in it. The reason why is because the fuel is cryogenic. It's cold. It'll make the whole, and it's metal. When you freeze metal, it contracts, right? When you freeze anything, it contracts, right? The whole stack actually gets a little bit smaller. Yeah, fun fact. Not a lot of people know that. I think that's super cool. I got fully tanked that last night with rum and scotch. Did you contract? It shrinks when it's cold, Kralani. I'm sorry. It's the rocket. I don't know what happened. All right. So I'm going to keep our SRBs pinned so we can watch the thrust output, right? And now I have gimbal. We have the gimbal designed to turn on during ignition and separation. Okay, we are in a good spot. Let me just stop. Pins fell out. Pins fell out. No good. It's going to do the same thing again. Look. Oh, that's bad. Where is... Oh, dude. It's not even aligned. Yeah, there's your problem. So the problem is repeatable, which is good. If we launch this, it wouldn't go. It would just sit there. No good. It didn't settle right. It settled completely wrong, actually. Can't park there, mate. Can't park there, mate. Crap. Yeah. So the interesting thing is it looks like this one is all right. Let me just take a look at it. Oh, no, it's not all right at all. Our master control point is right there. And because we undid that docking port, I undid that docking port so we could attach the stack correctly to mimic how we would integrate putting this thing together. Yeah, that's bad. That's not great. Yeah, what's going to happen when you attach 30 tons of orbit? Yeah, what's going to happen with a fully tanked external tank on top of this, Julie? Yeah, that's it. It's not going to work. That's it. It'll slip off the pad. It'll fall. It'll fall into the flame trench. Dang. All right. Well, the problem is replicatable, which is good. I'm trying to think what we could do to fix this. Isn't the real thing attached from just the boosters? Well, yeah, of course. The real hold down pins are right there, on the real ones. They're, yeah. The shuttle and SLS are held up by 8 load-bearing points. There's 4 on each SRB. That's, yeah, SLS, shuttle, same idea. Is there a reason you aren't testing with this with an ET and an orbiter? Fish. Also, yeah, welcome back, dude. I saw you pop in yesterday. Yeah, I haven't gotten that far. We needed to figure out so Fish, I don't know if you remember like snap docking back in the day, dude. I think that may have been a little bit after your time in here. Yeah, I didn't get, there were certain things that we had to prove out to make sure that it worked, like being able to join 2 SRBs together without the game freaking out. Yeah, that was a big one. Somebody suggested making the pins a little bit longer. That's possible. KSP loves not to cooperate. Yeah, so does physics. You know, that's the way she goes, bud. Okay, I'm gonna recover this. Yeah, that didn't work. Gotta recover the whole thing. I got another idea. It might work. So we might be able to play around with some Autostrut logic here, okay? So let's just hit the save button and make sure. I need to see how the Autostruts are gonna work here. And I need to make sure that I don't overwrite this save. So what we do here, when we separate that docking port and we tell it to attach right there, so we go from this Autostrut hierarchy that has a nice X brace there that holds everything into position, right? We go from that to separate this SRB, right? We go up here, make that docking port the root. And reattach. That's what we end up doing. So now our hierarchy is this. See how it's asymmetric? We don't have that cross anymore. It goes up, through, and down because now it's reading this as the root part of the stack. We have to do this way or else it's not going to understand when I go to separate both SRBs that this is actually all connected together as one vehicle. It won't understand it. Kerbal doesn't get docking two vehicles like this. So you see how before we had a cross right here. There was a crisscross. Now we don't have that. Because this SRB hierarchically, how it's attached to the pad hasn't changed. But this one does. That's what happens when we do that snap dock thing. Now, let's think about this for a second. Is there something we can do when we're in this type of hierarchy to be able to get the SRBs to kind of stay put? Maybe if we take the nose cone and set both nose cones to root part, that'll make it root down to there, which is useful. Really stupid question. Would it be worth trying to stack them fueled without reducing settling? Untested, Fluffy. The reason why it's untested is because I know for a fact that if I separate that docking port to try to get the hierarchy to work correctly, well, this thing is fueled, it'll probably explode. It's too heavy. Kerbal doesn't understand. Yeah, Kerbal doesn't understand because it's going to undo the SRB. Think about it for a second. Think it's a separate vehicle and then reattach it up there. You're much safer doing it unfueled. From my past experiences with KSP. I have not tested it though, I will say. Or did we? I don't know if we tested them when they were fully fueled. We could check, but it might explode. Now that could fix this problem. That could fix it, because this could hold everything in position. When SRBX. You guys really want SRBX, don't you? I mean... There you go. I hate it. I hate it a lot. I hate it a lot. I just tested it, both gimbals locked with the cowl. Thanks, Tyler. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you for helping me with my analysis. That really, really does actually help. Maybe setting the fairing as our root part? Actually, no. The fairing is not the heavy part, guys. If we did do some kind of root part fudging hierarchy here, it would have to be the SRBs. The SRBs would have to be attached to root. They would have to. Because, yeah, that's the part that I don't want moving. Okay. Gerbils really like drifting around. Yeah, yeah. That's because they're hoonigans. Something like that. I hope I didn't hit the save button by accident. I may have. In which case I gotta reintegrate. I did hit the save button by accident. Yeah, this is not going to get us a good test, so I have to go in here. Don't save. Hey, Tars, what's up, man? And I have to get my stack measurements. Craft file, there we go. All right, merge. And we need the right-hand side SRB. Shift-click makes it so you can separate it from a subassembly. All right. So get rid of that. Get rid of that. Gerbil's got to do it. Save. All right. So this has my boosters auto-strutted to the pad. They're auto-strutted root part to the pad. The only thing I'm wondering about with something like this, dudes, is whether if we go to attach to the ET and the space shuttle, will root part default to somewhere else other than the Launchpad? Also, I got to make sure that we have the gimbal lock working correctly. The gimbal lockout. Okay, that has the right curve on it. AG0 over here, free gimbal. Make sure that the SRB is locked out. There we go. We're good. All right. Another thing that I'm toying with doing here is adding some type of pin, some type of piece here that makes it so the pin can't sink down any further. To try and... Oh. That might have something to do with it. I'm just trying to think about the repercussions of remapping the SRB hierarchy in my head. Or the SRB hold down hierarchy, because that's not ideal. That means as we tank it, it sinks into position. That's probably part of the reason why this is going on. What happens if we take this and move it downwards a little bit? Move it down 10 centimeter. No, they collide with each other. Yeah, the next thing to do would be what happens if we take the ring and move it up. No. No good. Can't move either one. Hey, Ghost Vera, what's up? I do have another idea. All right. Maybe we should test with the root part stuff first. My other idea, guys, would be to have a Kerbal run struts before we tank the SRBs. Have a Kerbal run a strut from the aft SRB skirt to that ring right there. Just run a strut right there. Right? Why wouldn't that work? Run a strut there before the SRBs get tanked, so that strut will make sure that that doesn't move. But if Autostrut does it for us, then I think we're okay. Or we just redesign the thrust. We just redesign the mounting plate for the SRBs. We could also do that. Moving these up to deal with the drift might not be the stupidest idea. Why don't you use the SRB with same vessel interaction and use the entire thing as support? Way ahead of you, Aitor. The SRBs, that one is because I needed to replace it. The SRBs are physically sitting on their nozzles here. They're sitting on that inner ring, dude. The reason why I did it that way is because I know that way works with building a reaction frame in KSP. I know that it works. I've done it. I've used this formula to great success in the past.
Discovery, go
Hey,
and
July,
throttle.
what's up, dude? Cockbill, what's going on, buddy? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have these set to grandparent part for now. And I'm going to manually move them to root part. I'm going to manually move them to root part after we redo the hierarchy. Or I change the hierarchy. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is we got to watch the pin drift. I think we'll do this test with pin drift first. Testing that to see if the SRB pins move around under load when they're in there, they don't slip out. That might fix it, guys. That just giving this more of a slot to deal with might actually work. Depending on how much the SRB, the length of travel from fully loaded SRBs. This might fix the problem. If that doesn't fix the problem, we'll try the gimbal stuff. All right, let's do this. You guys ready? No. Where's Thomas? Oh, he might still be on the runway. Yeah, there we go. Didn't you have some concerns regarding Kerbal construction? Now is the time to figure them out, dude. Yeah. So I have a bunch of solutions here. I think moving the pins is probably the best solution, doing what I already did. Okay. Verify that our hierarchy is in position. Yep. Okay. Let's shut off the SRB, disable SRB firing chain. SRB firing chain is locked out. Go into the cal controller. Open the editor. Go into action groups. We select thrust limiter and thrust limiter. Okay. And we go here like this. Invert that down. Copy that curve. Go over here. Bring up the fuel sensors for both SRBs and oh, we got to activate them. SRB fueling has begun. So, see that, guys? That's Kerbal's way of telling you that you're overloading a part. There's too much weight on a piece. It does that when it doesn't like it. Yeah, that's the right way to say that. Okay, shut it down. But the pins are holding it in position, but she is jerking around there. Yeah. Both of them are yelling at me. See them moving? Not great. Now, I did activate the root part Autostrut on these things, and they did, for the most part, stop moving around. But because these parts are jittering all over the place, right? I'm wondering if setting these to root will help them at all. Not really. Now, like I said, good news is that the pins are holding. The pins are holding in position. But it's not going to be for long. Look. Oh, the other thing is I didn't attach the struts. Didn't have the Kerbal go out and attach the struts. This test is inconclusive. Damn. Gotta do that. Whoops. Will you stream the Spectrum launch? Yeah, of course. Am I the only one that got an ESAR Go Live alert for 30 minutes? Well, the launch is supposed to be at 4. So the good news about that test is that we got a slightly different result. But we got a slightly different result. I'm afraid it might have been because we bypassed the step. So unfortunately, I gotta go do it again. Good times. All right, let's try it again. Step 1. Okay. Change hierarchy over. But if you need to attach a strut, it isn't fully reusable, right? What do you mean? Kerbals can attach struts, dude. I can just do that every time. The strut, the SRB aft attachment struts on SLS are attached by people. And the same thing with the shuttle. You know, it'd have some turnaround time, which... All right, ready? Hierarchy is redone. All right, cool. Now we got to get Darwin out. What if you take them off the load path? Take what off the load path? Do the Autostrut truss with your clevis pieces. Directly do a second set or something similar directly against the ground. That is something that we should explore, Aqualux, because that's one of the big differences between this pad and the other. So how this pad is working is these are attached to this piece right here, the Mark III rocket fuselage. And the rocket fuselage is attached to the ground, or attached to this Mark III, which is attached to the ground. So, well, that is a little bit of a difference. The other pad had two thumpers on either side and two smaller SRBs for your posts from there. Theoretically, this should be less parts in the load path all the way to the ground. And I'm not sure if that's going to make a difference or not. The other thing is that on the outside, I have this thing strutted. We have it strutted to the outer tanks over here to bridge the gap over the trench, right? The tubes, the jigglers. Well, this is, I mean, yeah, that could help. Yeah, if I put, like, if we attached another ring to it and I just put the ring down on the ground, we did that on the, we did stuff like that on the SSTO pad. Seemed to have worked okay. Heck, even taking another one of like a 37 structural tube, attaching it to the 25 structural, and then just gizmoing it down so it's on the ground, that could help. Yeah, that'd help with our load dispersion for sure. Let me just make sure the SRBs are set to root. Yes, they are. Okay, cool. So now we go into the inventory and we do that to that. You saw it move, didn't you? I'm wondering if something subtle like that is going to make a difference. Try for it. See how much this thing goes squirrely on us. second set of those clevises just on the ground. That could work. I was thinking just put a ring down there. It solves the exact same problem for 6 less parts. No? Perhaps? Okay. Next thing to do would be to decouple the Kerbal. Take the Kerbal out of the equation. It's not like they're going to be sitting around here. Okay. Next step, disable the SRB firing chains on both boosters. Both boosters are disabled. Verify that both are locked out. Both are locked out. Cool. On the gimbal. Go in here. Go into our action groups. Select the cow controller. Select the thrust limiter for left and right SRB. Invert the controller. Copy the curve from one to the other. Okay, SRB refueling activation system is armed. We just got to enable our SRBs. So pin that one, pin that one. Activating left and right SRBs. SRB tanking has begun. Why don't you put more support parts? Aitor, because this is an iterative design, I didn't think I needed more. I thought this would be strong enough, at least initially, for what we were trying to do. We might have to redesign our SRB holds, or we could add more support, like what everybody's saying. My thinking included your Autostrut truss trick for the extra strength. Symmetry. Yeah, the symmetry trick. It's not a bad idea, dude. It really isn't. Yeah, if I took these and put another set in 4X down there on the ground with grandparents strutting. But then again, even if I put another ring down there, it'll still do the same thing over the grandparents sim. It'll run a crossbar. Like the Autostrut would be up one, and then over one, and then up one, over one for grandparent. And they would, okay, we are good to go. Shut down that. Guys, with that extra strut back here, they didn't move. The SRBs are still in the same spots that they were. They may have sank just a little bit, but it's a negligible amount compared to what was going on before. And we are loaded. Okay, cool. Disabled the SRB refueling controller. Okay. Re-enable left and right SRB firing chains. Verify that free gimbal is across both boosters. Set control point. Control point is armed. Okay. Do you have to do the separatrons separately for refueling them? Yeah, Sarah, I would refuel the separatrons before we put the boosters out on the pad. We might need to redo our separation controller. Each SRB has its own sequence separation controller. It's in here somewhere. I have to go find it. Or no, I don't believe it's a sequence separation controller. I believe it's, yeah. We're going to need to reuse the separatrons on the nose cones. We're going to need to make it a cal controller to do all that. Or at the very least, we need to activate a cal controller that's going to be able to modulate the thrust limiter on our separatrons so we can reuse them. But yes, that concept is not something, Sarah, it's not something I had thought about yet, because honestly, if we can do it with the main SRBs, I can do it with the separatrons. I just haven't gotten to the point of being able to format this correctly to be able to make the SRB fully reusable, right? Are we going to watch the Spectrum launch? Yes. All right. SAS is enabled. Firing chain is armed. Let me make sure that AG0 has that. Undock. Undock. Just in case. Undock there. All 4 of my hold down, or my SRB aft umbilicals are set into the main action group. That is something we're going to have to enable manually every time. There's no way to get around it, unless, once again, we could sequence it on a master auto sequencer cal controller if we really wanted to. But yeah, you're going to have to manually set it for now. That would mean the shuttle is going to need another cal controller for the master auto sequencer. That will tell all of the rest of this stuff, cal controllers, etc., to go at the right times. Okay. Is this Spectrum the internet service provider? No, Spectrum is the name of a rocket that's operated by ESAR Aerospace. It's a European small-sat launch company, commercial small-sat launch company. But guys, that extra strut seems to be holding this in place. I'm genuinely curious what happens if I disable root part here. I kind of want to do it just to see. Yeah, nothing made a difference. That didn't change anything. Adding an aft attachment strut is the right idea. That's the right move. Now, are these things still freaking out? Nope. How much point load can a strut in KSP take? That's ridiculous, dude. Each one of those struts is holding up 144 tons of booster. Now, it remains to be seen whether that is going to work with the external tank and orbiter attached, but like I said, I'm iterating here as I go. Okay. Firing chain is armed. Control point is set. The next part of this test that I'm looking for that I want to work correctly is when we separate from this, I want to be controlling the SRBs. I want to make sure that when we separate, control gets defaulted to the solid rocket boosters. T-minus 10, 9, 8. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? It doesn't matter. I was going to say I'm going to take the camera off so when we go to review this footage, you don't see double EJ the whole time. Actually, you know what? I think I will do that. All right, ready? T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Well, it worked, but we did not default control. Control did not default to the right thing. Yeah, well, that's not great. Generally, I don't want to be aiming my SRBs at the VAB, so... Vaporized. Blown out to the... Body can do that? Oh, yeah. Otherwise, guys, remarkably stable. That was from... Just ignore that part, okay? Thrust tailing off on the SRB, standing by for separation. Next, this part of the test, I really need to make sure that it defaults control. I needed it to default control to the crossbar. Separation was good. We did not default control to the right thing. The separation sequencer did work correctly, though. Yeah, it defaulted control to I'm back. It defaulted control to the SRB, what it found to be root part, which was the last part that was touching the launch pad. Not great. Did NASA ever test an SRB that wasn't attached to the stack? Ares 1 would be my only guess for that. And these are going way further downrange than before. The reason why is because we didn't have a, we didn't have a external tank and space shuttle attached to it. How are you switching the vehicles in atmosphere? You can switch to any vehicle in atmosphere that is physically rendered. Meaning physical rendering happens when you're in the air. It's 2,000 meters. Anything that's 2,000 meters away from each other, you can switch back and forth. Yeah, that's a thing, dude. Now, it's important to see what my SRBs are being labeled as. The SRBs are being labeled as ships, interestingly enough, and the truss piece is being labeled as a probe. That right there is why it defaulted control to the SRBs, because if a ship undocks from a probe, the game will default control to the ship. I got to make sure my SRBs aren't labeled as ships. If they're labeled as a ship, it's not going to work. Your vessel undocking hierarchy isn't going to work. So my thought on how to put the pad out was to spawn it with an alignment jig. Then you detach the jig, leaving the pad in 3 separate craft held in place with Kraken tech, so you don't have to worry about these hierarchy issues due to the loop formed between the external tank and pad of the SRBs. I know your idea. I don't understand why you're suggesting this idea, because this works. Well, why change this? This works. I understand using Kraken tech to link the plates together. That's not a bad idea. But why are we doing that if this works? Yeah, so Delta, you can switch vehicles with the bracket keys in case that part was not communicated. Now, the cool thing is that, look, if you'll be able to switch vehicles when you're within physical rendering range, so 2,000 meters. Now, the cool thing is that as long as these SRBs, so listen to this part, this is important. As long as these SRBs stay within 20 kilometers of each other, I'll be able to switch back. You just got to get close enough to them so the game understands that it's a vehicle that's flying through the air and not a piece of debris. It's, yeah, just a little bit with the game logic. But if you look at my twin SRBs, I could switch between them, no problem. And they're 1,600 meters away, and it's not really an issue. See, they're flying in formation, as the shuttle gods intended. That got, yep, nope, they got a little bit spicy there. It looks like both boosters overheated because of the downrange trajectory. That's great. And it looks like everything inside of them exploded as well. Lovely. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say that these probably are not reusable. Just, and yeah, yep. They tumbled during re-entry, Admiral. Yeah, they tumbled. Only for a little bit. It aerodynamically stabilized after a while, but they were tumbling well into the atmosphere. Yep. Oh, hey, the drogue chute still worked. But check it out. Even now, these things are so far apart from each other. But once again, as long as you get close to something when you're in the atmosphere and then separate it, you'll be able to switch to it. Yeah, you'll be able to switch back and forth, which is pretty cool. Just like that one electron recovery they showed footage of. Something like that. Here we go. We got a good drogue on one. There's the second one. Can't deploy my main chutes without separating the fairing and stuff. Which, yeah, unfortunate. I mean, yeah, I don't want to lose it, so. I didn't think that SRB putty fuel can be refilled on the pad, right? Not in real life, hell no. I'm doing that in Kerbal because, Chief, I'm doing that in Kerbal because the real SRBs need to be stacked. So how they stack the SRBs is they stack one segment, and then they put another one on, and then another one, and then another one until you got 4 segments, right? Yes, beer cans. So I can't do that in KSP. It's just one solid thing. So my solution, because I can't integrate exactly like how they integrate in real life, is to just fuel the SRB on the pad. That also solves our SRB reusability problems in the future. You just tagged me on X for something. Let's see. I don't see any notifications, dude. You posted it in Discord too. What's up? Where'd you post it in Discord? Oh. Oh. In space, nobody can hear you scream. Except Jared Isaacman. That's classified. Yeah, how'd you know? That's pretty funny, man. How'd you know? Do you think Roscosmos will stream the launch of Soyuz 5 on Friday? Probably not. I mean, I don't know, they might. All right, let's go take a look at the pad. Sequentially, yeah, Chief. They stack segments on top of segments. The segments are fueled. Each SRB segment on those things is 250 metric tons a pop. There's 4 of them on each one on a shuttle stack and 5 of them on an SLS stack. So that's 1,250 tons per booster on an SLS stack. 2,500 tons total of solid rocket booster, dude. You know, that's like 8 core stages worth of mass, right? That's how much of a punch those things pack. Crazy, right? Yeah, dude, they're no joke. But anyway, so in the future, guys, what I want to do is attach the strut to the ring first and then to the SRB. So instead of SRB to ring for those 2 aft attachment points that we added, I want to go ring to SRB. That way we can reuse the strut and it doesn't wind up like 1,000 kilometers downrange on a blown up SRB. We can get some of our struts back that way. Now the ET struts, those are gone. But yeah, if we go ring to SRB in the future, that'll work. How much horsepower per ton of SRB fuel is that? Yes. And we got to change the SRB vehicle type. Yes, that's correct. I guess with billions of dollars, you can be cool about your jokes. I mean, Delta Whiskey, if I had $5 billion in the bank, people could say whatever the hell they want about me. I would not care. You could say you're weird looking. I'd be like, yeah, you're not wrong. What are you going to do? Piss me off? I have $5 billion in the bank. Is that supposed to, like, like, I was going to say, like, that's supposed to hurt my feelings? I don't care. Don't we already? Yeah, I'm not even a billionaire, and you guys already do that. Like, it doesn't. Like, imagine the amount of fricks I would not give if I had $5 billion sitting in a bank account. Like, I'd just be like, all right, whatever. All right, okay. Through you too, buddy. You know, like, as the humans say, up yours. Yeah, exactly. Oh, boy. Anyway, I guess it's time for ESAR, guys. So, yeah, good conclusive testing. We'll have to have the Kerbals attach struts down on the stack. The next real big step, guys, would be to load test the thing. We also have to make some changes with, why did my brain just stop working? Come on. We have to make some changes with the vessel hierarchy. We have to make sure that we separate from the right vehicles. We did not separate from the pad correctly that time, and we did not separate from the SRBs correctly. We have to make sure our separations are working as intended. That's a big one. We have to make sure that works right. I can't separate the shuttle stack and switch to it, switch to the SRB during, separation. If we go to launch a shuttle, shoot off the SRBs, right? And then have to switch back to the shuttle stack? No, we don't want that. That would be bad. Simultaneously, during ignition, I do not want to have to switch to the pad, back to the shuttle stack to fly the dang thing. That can cause stability problems on the way up. Test it with the external tank on. I would be happier if we did vessel hierarchy, Chief, before any of that. We might have to put a full stack out on it. I don't know, we'll see. Let's I hope you guys enjoyed part 3. Yeah. I just don't have enough time in the day, man. Damn. I don't have enough time. Like, I want to get more of this stuff done, but we got the ESAR launch in an hour, so we got to cover that. I want to see if this thing goes. The last one blew up. I think on the other side of Space News, we'll come back to KSP. We'll come back to it, and we'll keep doing testing. How do we want to do this? Okay, here's what I had planned on doing. I had planned on doing a recap of the NASA ignition stuff with you guys for Space News. I'm going to move that to Space News tomorrow and do the ESAR coverage today so we can play more KSP. Yeah. I think that's what we should do. So that's what I'm going to do. So yeah, on the YouTube side of things, stand by for loss of signal as expected. So guys, honestly, it's NSF is doing the coverage for ESAR. So on the YouTube side of things, I'm not going to double stream it. So unfortunately on my end, the ESAR coverage is only on Twitch. If you want to see the ESAR coverage on YouTube, just go over to NASA Spaceflight and go from there. So stand by for a loss of signal on the YouTube channels. On the YouTube channel, on Twitch, just stay here. I'll be back in probably like a minute. So, yeah, stand by for loss of signal, as expected. Thank you very much for watching. Be back momentarily.